reason or another. All possible hijackings.
When I talked to the command center again, he told me that another aircraft was being hijacked. And he said, as a matter of fact, it's one of your airplanes.
We were tracking United 93, and I was in conversation with the FBI agent, and he was relaying to me that we suspect that this aircraft has now been taken over by hostile forces. Described the sharp turn it made over eastern Ohio, and now it's heading back along southwestern Pennsylvania. And I could tell just by giving it a visual track that it was obviously heading for the Washington, D.C. area.
As Flight 93 speeds toward Washington, D.C., the Federal Aviation Administration does something unprecedented in aviation history. Officials at the FAA Command Center order that the national airspace be completely shut down, the grounding of every single civilian plane in the sky. This FAA animation shows what the skies look like at 9:45 a.m. September 11th, 2001. Controllers have already landed more than 1,000 planes from the Boston and New York air corridors. There are still 3,949 planes in the air. Controllers must still land every single one as quickly as they can at the nearest possible airport, no matter how far from their intended destination. The controllers begin rerouting the planes at the rate of one every second.
And people were landing out here in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and Peoria, Illinois.
They were landing all over the country. This whole system basically just
So it looks like a daisy field, and suddenly it goes dark.
At the Cleveland Center, Stacey Taylor is busy diverting planes to land, but can't stop thinking about Flight 93.
You're keeping your eye on Flight 93 at this point.
Yeah. And then the transponder came back on. We got 2 hits off the transponder. That's something we've always wanted to know. Why did the transponder come back on? And we're thinking, oh, maybe something's happened. Maybe this isn't what we think it is.
But minutes later, at 10:03, the transponder shuts off again. Flight 93 disappears from radar.
I had another airplane that I was working, and I told him, I said, sir, I think we have an aircraft down. I said, it's entirely up to you, but if you'd be willing to fly over the last place that we spotted this airplane, and see if you can see anything. And he's like, yeah, we'll do that. So we flew over, and at first he didn't see anything. Then he said, we see a great big plume or a cloud of smoke.
You knew it was down.
A number of heroic passengers had launched their own counterattack on the cockpit, preventing the plane from reaching its presumed target, the nation's capital. 10:30 a.m., the FAA's view of the national airspace. In just 45 minutes, controllers have safely landed almost 2,500 planes, but there still are more than 1,500 in the air, and each one is a potential weapon. The airspace above the United States is in a lockdown. Controllers are furiously diverting planes to land at the nearest possible airport.
It was a war zone. Skies were turning into a war zone. Everywhere you turn, it was military jets and helicopters everywhere. And that's when the reality sank in. We're at war.
It was nuts.
Yeah. 11:30 a.m. More than 3,000 planes have landed safely, but there are more than 900 still to go.
Man, how did you keep the concentration on the other planes knowing what had happened here?
It's hard, but you do it because that's what you train to do.
Finally, at 12:15 p.m., 4 hours to the minute, when controllers lost contact with that first airliner, they have accomplished their mission. For the first time in the history of air traffic control, dating back to 1938, there is not a single civilian plane in the sky over the U.S. Until now, there has been no time to deal with emotion. But with the airspace clear, the enormity of what has happened, the staggering loss of life, hits home.
I broke down. I broke down.
At Boston Center, Pete Zalewski, the first controller to handle a hijacked plane, maintaining composure throughout it all, he finally falls apart.
I started crying. I couldn't talk. I started shaking. And I just said, what's wrong with the world? What is happening?
There is more bad news for the Boston Center. One of the controller's wives actually had been on the American Flight 11, the first plane to hit the World Trade Tower.
Doug McKay's wife was on American 11. And
Was he on duty?
Doug was actually on his way to work. Doug had dropped his wife off at the airport.
We stopped Doug at the door, and we basically took him aside and brought him into another room, and we went through taking care of Doug. And it was pretty tragic.
That is part of the brotherhood and sisterhood, isn't it? You have to take care of each other as well as take care of all those airplanes.
It sure is.
The skies over America would ultimately remain closed down for 3 days to civilian aircraft. When flights resumed and controllers came back on duty in this room after September 11th, what was the tone?
Very somber.
For many controllers, the coming days and weeks were harder still. Each shift a waiting game, with controllers wondering, will there be a next time? And if there is, will we be able to stop it?
Every little thing that happened, I was jumping up.
And any tiny little glitch would cause.
Stress was enormous.
For Pete Zaluski, it was difficult to come back at all.
For about a month, I didn't sleep. I was out of work for about 6 weeks, but I knew there was a point where I would go back. I needed my life back.
The shadow of that day will always hang over them.
Every time an aircraft doesn't do exactly what you tell them, it brings up the thought of what could happen now. What's going to happen? What is he doing? Why is he doing this? Why is he not answering? It brings it right back every time.
Not only planes as weapons, but we're also watching out for sensitive areas such as nuclear power plants, large stadiums, reservoirs. And that's added a new dimension to our job. And we feel that we are every bit a part of this nation's defense when it comes to the skies as anybody else. Because, we're going to be the first line there.
Every September 11th is another painful reminder for these controllers. Many have shied away from reading about it or watching coverage on television.
Well, I already know too much. Because as I watched the American disappear, the United disappeared. And those were the first two. And I guess I'm the first one to know it.
It's an honor you'd rather give up, though, right?
Absolutely. I just think about all those people. And all the brave people that died there.
He remains in awe of the timing of it all.
How did they do such a coordinated thing that the American literally disappeared and the United literally got hijacked at almost the same time? And I've always wondered if they were actually talking to each other, saying, I'm going in now, good luck.
It's the what-ifs that plague the Newark controllers. What if those fighter jets scrambled to intercept the second plane had arrived just a bit earlier?
I remember the two F-15s. They were there moments after the impact. And I was just said to myself, they only could have gotten there a couple minutes earlier. They just missed it.
What would they have done?
What do you think they would have done?
I don't know what they have done.
20/20 hindsight.
They probably wouldn't have had to shoot it down.
But back then, it only came from the president.
Right?
What if Flight 93, delayed so long on the runway at Newark that morning, had been delayed just a few minutes more?
It happened a few minutes later. It may not have made it off the ground. It may not have made it at all. Unfortunately.
Each of them struggles with personal memories, moments, images, seared into their consciousness. They will never forget them.
I still can hear their voice. That will never go away from me. But just horrific. Just the feeling of it, the voices, you knew they had control. You knew they had control, and we didn't. And that was very scary, because as controllers, you're taught to have control, and there wasn't on that day.
They were the 4 darkest hours in aviation history. But these controllers and their colleagues across the U.S. met an unprecedented challenge that morning 5 years ago. Their coolness kept other tragedies from occurring, ensuring the safety of more than 350,000 people in the air, countless more on the ground.
I know you have professional pride, but when you look back, aren't you a little astonished that it went as well as it did?
The people that work in that day did a phenomenal job. I mean, the controllers in this country are the best in the world, and I'm proud to be one of them.
There was a time when we had the luxury of taking our air traffic controllers for granted, but no more. Today, 5 years after 9/11, we have an insider's appreciation of their critical role in getting us off the ground and headed safely to our destination, or in times of national emergency, out of the air and back safely on the ground. September 11th was at once the blackest day in their profession and the proudest. I'm Tom Brokaw. Thanks for watching.
This has been a presentation of NBC News.